Hi there, and welcome to the ATS podcast with me, Will Brown, and John Soulsby, where we break down a bunch of health and fitness information into bite-sized pieces, remove a bunch of the noise, and just leave what's relevant. Today we are talking about advanced strategies for fat loss and body recomposition.
Yeah.
So, the strategies I would probably coin as advanced are probably for people who already have a fairly comfortable relationship with the basic stuff that works and kind of will get you there. Um, in terms of fat loss and recomposition, especially advanced strategies, weight cuts for sport and stuff, I think fall into this one. Um,
100%.
yeah, the same kind of principle for a physique show prep probably fall into this. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anyone needs really any of these if their general goals are fat loss or body recomposition. As in, if you're just like wanting to lose a bit of fat and put on a bit of muscle, probably this isn't where you're like looking for them, because if you do the simple things well, you're 90% of the way there.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're looking at like water loading and manipulating carbohydrates and things for that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah, and fiber.
yeah. Um,
We could break each one of those down because they kind of apply. So like
yep.
powerlifting, yeah, powerlifting, or any weight cut kind of sport, you typically have a couple of ways to do things. You can obviously just use a traditional fat loss caloric deficit to remove adipose tissue. The only downside to that is it can affect performance depending on how steep the deficit is and how you structure around training. Obviously, if you're just like, I'm gonna go no carb because I heard that works, like when you're having to do probably your toughest training of your training cycle pre-competition, it's probably not the time you want to like constrain your resources unnecessarily.
Yep.
Um, and carbohydrate being the primary one. Obviously, creatine's in there too, but carbohydrate is also used. Um, so usually you can do a bit of that, and also you can only remove fat so fast. Like you can't. Similarly to when people think they've gained loads of weight because they had one rowdy night on a weekend where they had pizza and everything else. Like that one day is not going to ruin everything because you simply can't add tissue that quick. It
Yep.
doesn't grow that quickly. Um, so in weight cut wise, we have traditional kind of fat loss stuff up to a point, and then you can get into water loading and water cutting. You don't have to do both at the same time. A water load is you about what would you say, like 5 to 6 days out from weigh-in day, you steadily increase your water
Yep.
intake from like a normal couple of liters all the way up to anywhere from 7 to 10 liters depending on your body weight. Uh,
Yeah.
and what that does is create an extremely, unsurprisingly, everyone listening is probably like, wouldn't you just pee all the time? Yes,
A
yes, you
pissing
would.
machine.
You are a certified piss missile, like at all points.
Yeah. Yeah, I
However,
suppose if anyone's like thought about it, like if you've like drunk lots of like even just soft drinks at a barbecue or something, and then for the rest of the evening you're like, God damn, I'm peeing every like 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
yeah, it's like that.
You're doing that for
Yeah,
5 days.
yeah, you do that, really loading up on the water, and then you remove all of it. Like you go down to zero water about 24 hours out, and also zero salt because you cut sodium almost completely. You don't want any water retention. You want to just dry out. Um, and then you will continue that piss missile behavior and continually pee, 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 and you'll end up with like a net dehydrated effect where you actually kind of over excrete a bunch of your body's water, and that will result in like a weight drop, which will then nudge you under your weight class of whatever you're trying to get into. Uh, the other way you can do this is just a water cut. You can technically do both of them at the same time. water cutting is just a certain amount of time out, stopping and taking water, and then using something like a sauna, a hot bath, hot showering, um, something that will dramatically increase your core body temperature, causing you to sweat profusely, and also, if you can get it, removes the sweat from your top layer of skin at the same time. That's why the kind of like in vitro-esque bath option is quite good, but it's the least comfortable because
Yeah.
you're essentially nose deep in as hot a water as you can stand. However, it does get the whole process. Like you can drop like depending on how much you've already depending on how hydrated you are at the time, you can usually drop like anywhere from a few hundred grams, even close to a kilo, like in minutes, like
Yeah.
half an hour-ish max. The bad side to that is you can get heat exhaustion.
I was
you
going to
can
say, I think like two caveats to that one,
you need a
especially
spotter.
is like you need someone there, like making sure you're okay. I suppose like what would you suggest to monitor, but like heart rate in general, because if
Yeah,
I
like
was
the
to
general bouts of like hot bath and hot shower, I usually go by either as long as you can physically take it, or sorry, like you go about 5 minutes, or your heart rate is about 150, whichever comes first.
yeah,
And if either of those happen, either 5 minutes elapses or it's 150 on the old BPMs, you get out, dry yourself off. Um, Really efficient way to cool yourself back down is like a bag of ice on the back of your neck, which
yeah,
will feel amazing at that time. Like it's probably the only time you'd want to do the ice bucket challenge
hmm
again.
yeah,
Uh, and then dry yourself off, get on the scales. Main thing is keeping your hair dry if you have hair, because that holds a bunch of water.
yeah.
Get on the scales and check your weight and go again if you need to, but it's usually not too much. The other one is gut cutting, which is incredibly popular.
So the only thing before we move on to that, the
Oh
only
yeah.
thing I say is like don't absolutely rip the pit. I don't know what you would say the hard cap is for how much to try and lose with a water cut, but
Depends what you're trying to do. Like the whole point is this is always like it's usually for a weight class sport, and that obviously
yeah,
means that you're going to be performing some kind of thing. If you're going to be performing and you have like the like how much you can go or how hard you can go with it depends on how long you have until you compete. Like the IPF is 2 hour weigh-ins. So like after you do a certain percentage of water drop, like water, a lot of your intracellular water is stored in your muscles. And unsurprisingly, dehydrating your muscles so that you look like your muscles look like beef jerky is not the best way to put up your best kind of performance. So
yeah.
if you have a couple hour weigh-ins, which I know is quite common in a lot of weight class sports like judo and various things, yeah, don't do too much. You can use it for the last like few hundred grams if you need to. Like
Yeah.
I usually will advise people to do it the morning of rather than the night before, mainly because sometimes it can make it hard to sleep because you just
Yeah.
feel really fucking thirsty and like really dry. You feel like you got sand.
Um, but yeah, I suppose like to that point, it's like we're not looking to do more than like a few hundred grams. Like I don't know, maybe a kilo, but I would be hesitant to go even that high or
Depends on the
higher.
weight though, because like once you're
Of
over
course,
100 kegs, like a kilo isn't
yeah,
is less than a percentage of your
um,
body weight. So
yeah. But I think like after that, you're going to really struggle to perform, but potentially run into some pretty serious side effects of
yeah,
cutting that much
and the
water.
classic rebound strat is you want to be you're kind of aiming to be your goal weight like on the scales at competition for as little physical time as possible. So if you have like a protocol that you know takes off 600 grams, you are 600 grams heavy or like 500 and something grams heavy the night before, and as late as you can leave it, go through your protocol, cut the 600, and then as quickly as you can get to step, obviously like admin of the competition
Yeah,
sparing, but you get on the scales, and as you are on them getting your weight read out and it's in, you just start immediately chugging rehydrate. Like you
yeah,
take a bottle mixed up in with you, and as soon as someone clocks your weight at being in, immediately chug the rehydrate salts. Like every
yeah.
second counts with getting you rehydrated.
And yeah, I think like everything, like practice. Don't just do it for the first time the morning of a comp,
Or do and have a shit
unless
time.
you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, but like hopefully you'll know that you're going to be missing weight before you get to the competition date. Okay, yeah, if you're there and you're 200 grams off, you got to do what you got to do. But like, you should be more prepared than that.
Yeah, you should just be prepared. Give it a dry run or wet run. and see
Good.
how it goes. Gut cutting's another one, which is almost exactly as it sounds. It's not like seppuku. It's just you take a period of time to phase out most of your solid, like solid is a strong word, but like a lot of solid food and replace it with high calorie liquids. Just
Yep.
because they take up, they weigh less in total, like really calorically dense, like protein powders mixed into like whipping cream and shit like that. Like chocolate's a super popular option, unsurprisingly. Um, just because you can get a ton of calories for really low weight, and that will generally, once you kind of have moved all of your previous kind of food out of you, the low calorie stuff, number one, goes through quite quick because it's liquid, and number two, doesn't take up much weight, so you tend to drop quite a bit of food weight from your digestive system.
Yeah.
And that can be good for dropping, again, a few hundred grams here, a few hundred grams there, depending on the individual. The bigger you get, the more it's more significant, because again, bigger folk tend to eat more.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you compensate by having adequate carbohydrates, this is the thing, is you have to like make sure your carbohydrate intake is adequate during the gut cut, because trying to replenish carbohydrates and trying to replenish water are two very different kind of speeds. Like water will get into you and hydrate you a good bit quicker than you can get carbohydrates digested, broken down into their component parts, and sent to the places that they need to go.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, physique stuff. Don't really have a whole bunch of experience doing that. I've done a couple of recreational ones just for like weddings or like photo shoots and stuff like that, and it's fairly similar, except you remove a whole bunch of carbohydrates quite like about a week or so out, and just like really deplete the body's glycogen, which when you have to train a lot is difficult. Like people get extremely miserable. However, the night before, you again are minimizing sodium because you don't want any water in like water held, like subcutaneous water getting held, because it makes you look soft and kind of puffy.
Yeah.
And you add in a whole ton of carbohydrates, which are usually going to be plain potatoes or plain white rice, which doesn't go down as well as uh like somewhere close to a kilo of carbohydrates would, given most people's like ravenous hunger during their diet thing. But the refeed in carbohydrates just causes the glycogen to get replenished in the muscles, and they swell up and look really big. And without the kind of subcutaneous water, you get a very kind of filled out look. So people can lose a bunch of weight but look like they lost a bunch more weight because you did some trickery pokery illusion
Yeah.
stuff.
Some magic.
And then you get the natty lighting and the editing, and then it looks like they lost
Then
even more.
you post it on your socials.
But then, yeah, you have it for you have it for reposting on socials, because that how you look on that one day will not even last the whole day. It will last half of the day until you properly start refeeding, and then you will be so ravenously hungry that you'll eat fuck knows what, and you'll go back up a bunch of weight. It might result in a net negative, but there's way comfier ways to do it than that. That is, would not recommend. Like 2 out of 10 wouldn't recommend.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably the only advanced strats we implement, and don't recommend them to anyone who's not comfy or who isn't already comfortable doing diet and food stuff anyway.
Yeah.